Hi, everybody. It is Friday night, and it is Axis and Allies World Championship season here on Board Game Nation. Thank you very much for joining us. We have got a lot of people already here. Thank you so much for already being here. Let us know that you're here by hitting that like button and letting us know where you're from. We also need to check in on our audio and video and make sure that everybody can see and hear everything. We've already got our first super chat rather. Thank you, Cray T, for the $4.99 super chat there. Looking forward to this one. Thought this game was really interesting. I think ultimately, bad, good attacks aside, the winning strategy of pressure won out. Yep, I think you're absolutely right about that. Charles is here. Fantastic. Again, hit that thumbs up for us and let us know where you are from. Robin's here. Fantastic. We're going to let everybody kind of grab a drink and get the popcorn ready and be ready with your questions. One of the things that we're definitely going to be talking about tonight, other than the game, of course, is other games that we play. So I want to think about love Axis and Allies, of course, but it's nice to always have a refresher. Brian, thanks for being here, brother. And but what else? Man cannot live by cardboard warfare alone. What else are we playing out there? So start thinking about that. Let us know where you're from, and we will be back in just a few minutes. The countdown has concluded, and that means it is time to get started here. We've got a bunch of people already in. We've got Texas here, California. Owen and Jeff from California, thanks for being here, guys. True Trooper is here. Dave DeJour. Yeah, so we've got a lot of friends that are having what I call Axis and Allies weather. If you're in the New Orleans area, I know we've got a couple of friends down there. They got 8 inches of snow in New Orleans in the last couple of days. So that is, I grew up in Wisconsin, so that's like an average Tuesday. But I know that in New Orleans, that is cataclysmic. But I will say I've loved seeing there's a live cam that's running on Bourbon Street, and there's like bands playing and people still dancing around, and I love it. I think that's fantastic. But yeah, so 8 inches of snow in a day would slow us down, but personally I didn't drive in it. Nothing to sneeze at. Worse than when the state does. Yeah, when the state doesn't plow the snow. Yeah, I live in Memphis, so when it snows here, man, it is it's an apocalypse around here. We shut down forever. So but I lived in Jacksonville, Florida for a long time, and they actually got some snow. We got some relatives down there that keep sending us pictures of like the couple of inches of snow that they got, and they think that it's the end of the world. But if you don't have snow plows or or salt or anything like that, it does it can be challenging. But enough of that. It is time to bring in our fine feathered friend, my fellow Axis and Allies hostess, but the mostest here. Please welcome Mr. Doug Thorpe.
Happy Friday, Gary. There we
Start with
go.
Glockenspiel. I like it. Welcome,
Glad
welcome,
to be
welcome,
here, man,
Carl.
as always.
That's right. Love it, love it. Thanks for being here. Carl is here. Thanks, Carl. Appreciate you being here. Cray T is in West Virginia, playing a lot of Warhammer 40K competitively, and love Kriegspiel for online play. Man, I have heard so much about Kriegspiel. I haven't had a chance to do it. It's my understanding it's like the original tabletop war game, right? Am I got that? That's my
I'm not
understanding of it.
familiar with it.
Yeah, it's from way back, like
Hmm.
1800s, I think. Somebody tell me about that.
Oh,
Somebody's done some research. It looks pretty great. Jennings County, Indiana. You guys, oh my God. Um, one plow truck for the whole county. And if you spend any time in Indiana, they do not have small counties there. So I hope that they're paying the snowplow driver overtime. But yeah, wow, that's rough there. But awesome. Oh, we got Gabriel's here from Brazil. Brazil is in the house. Thank you for being
nice.
here this evening, and great to see you here. Um, Robin, my wife plays Splendor in tournaments. That's interesting. Where? Because I think that Splendor is actually one of the World Series of Board Gaming ring events. So that there's some money to be won out there if you, depending on her skill level, maybe making a trip out to Vegas. So very cool. Oh, we got ourselves another super chat. Lady Killer Thorpe, ready to crush. All right, there you go. That is your new nickname. I hope you get used to that. Thank you, Murdoch. We appreciate your contribution and for being here. Um,
I'm not sure how I feel about that nickname.
hey, I was a gnome scout or something, right? Like I like Lady Killer.
That's right.
I'll take Lady Killer over gnome scout. That's pretty cool. Um, yeah, so I've been playing Gloomhaven with my kids on Saturday, and that's funny because my son bought me a copy of Gloomhaven. Not a cheap game. It was a very nice gift, and I haven't even opened it.
It's
um,
really good. I like Gloomhaven a lot. You should play it.
yeah,
You'd love it.
yeah. I've been meaning to. It's a little
Yeah.
daunting, right? I mean, when I got the box and it said it was 18 kilograms, I'm like, that's a heavy game. Like we talk about
You
heavy games.
you have to buy one of those like broken token organizers or it'd be a total disaster. If you don't get one of those organizers to put in there, it's just like I wouldn't even try to play it without one.
Yeah,
It's too much.
that's what I'm told. Do you have one? Do you have a copy of this game?
Yeah, yeah. I actually just finished it with my boys probably about a month ago. Yeah, maybe it was right before Christmas or something. So
Is that before or after they started beating you up in an anniversary edition?
that was before the anniversary edition game with the whooping me's on the table right now.
Ah, yes. All right, good. You got to teach them. You got to start them young. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, yeah. This is out here.
I just
Shane. Hmm?
I can't hear you anymore, Gary.
Uh-oh.
I don't know if everyone else can.
We might have an audio problem here. Can anybody hear me? Checking audio, 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 audio.
Hear you now.
Oh, I'm back. Okay. Well,
Yeah.
that was strange. All right. Well, we'll hope that doesn't happen again. Shane Peach
Right.
is checking in. Watching these videos made me get back into AAA on the PC. Fantastic. Maybe we'll get you to an event at some point. So we'd love to see you out there. Carl has got himself a global game scheduled for tomorrow in Kenosha, my old stomping ground. Go Red Devils, and that's going to be the General's Fortress. Carl, is this that shop on Main Street downtown? There was a shop down there, but I thought it moved. I'm not sure. Is this that? Is this where that is? I'd love to know because I might have some people that I could send over there if you've got extra space. So very good. Um, we got a couple of great moderators in the chat today. Emily is here. Thank you. Everybody say hi to Emily. And of course, my lovely blushing bride is here as well. The lovely and talented Jamie Blevins. Normally, we would also have Jon Bosch in our chat today, but he apparently got last minute tickets to go to a Bee Gees tribute concert in Kansas City. So he is using his walk to show that he's a ladies' man. He's got no time to talk, so he's off to do that. But we will
Seems
wish
like
him
he's
luck.
got some different priorities these days.
That's what I'm saying. That's all. Like how much do you love me, right?
Yeah, I don't know.
That's all right. So, anyway, so awesome. So we will miss him, but we will see him next time. Yes. Yes. Jamie says hello. Everybody say hi to Jamie.
Hey, Jamie.
And Carl. Oh, yes. So it's in Ray's basement. My bad. I thought this was a game store downtown because I know there is one downtown that has live gaming. So don't show up at Ray's basement without an invitation. We should put that out there. So,
Yeah.
yes. Very good. And oh, okay, great. A shameless renegade plug. If you've seen the channel at all, it's not something we typically object to. It's probably a great Renegade plug, but the G.I. Joe deck builder game by Renegade is one of the best deck builders I've ever played. It's like playing with the toys, but with cards. That's fun. And by the way, that's also designed by Matt Hyra, who did the G.I. Joe board game in North Africa and Stalingrad and all that other stuff. So that's a good call. So actually, while I'm thinking about it, nice segue, Skip. Thank you very much. One of our members dropped in our Discord server an article that he wrote that was a review for G.I. Joe, for the G.I. Joe Axis and Allies game. So we wanted to drop that into the chat. So if anybody wanted to check that out, you could absolutely do that. And if it's a game that you've been thinking about buying, I really like it. It's a simpler game. It's fun. It's kind of a fun theme. And it's got a couple of interesting kind of rules quirks to it that I think are cool. Doug and I have played it and I had a good time with it, and it's certainly worth the money for it. But if you are going to buy it, please make sure to use our Renegade link that my lovely bride has just dropped into the what's it called? The chat. And so if you're going to buy something from Renegade, make sure you use our link. It does we get a minor kickback for those purchases. But
It's
speaking of shameless plugs, what?
I was just gonna say it's a good gateway for, like, I think at the last spring gathering, might have won it in a drawing there. Played it with my son and stuff, and it's good to introduce kids to some of the concepts of Axis and Allies without going like all the way there in your first game.
Yeah, it does. I think it's a pretty good game. So speaking of shameless plugs, if you have not seen the news of everything that's coming out for Axis and Allies in 2025, I've got a quick little thing here we're going to run through. We did this a couple weeks ago when the news first came out, but I want to kind of make sure, in case there's some folks here that have not been here before, that we would make sure that they are aware of how that is working out. So we're going to jump over to that real quick. Boom. Let's see if we can make this, if this does what we're supposed to do. We tried this, we watched some videos, and we've learned how to do it. Look at this. This is amazing. All right, so we got 3 games coming out in 2025. Battle of the Bulge is being re-released. I'm excited about this because I've heard so much about it, but I've never had an opportunity to play it. So I'm looking forward to that. I think that's going to be cool to be able to have back in circulation. There's also Battle for the Deep. Again, remember, Battle of the Bulge, Battle for the Deep. That is going to continue to trip everybody up. But then we also have Stalingrad, which is kind of the big news in the Axis and Allies World. Battle of the Bulge. This is a straight reprint of what they did before, of what Hasbro printed in 2006, I think is when this game originally came out, something like that. So I like it because it's got these little sliders underneath. So I think it's pretty cool. I think I've seen it in action. I have not had a chance to play it. So these are kind of the pieces as they move around. They stage here and then they go out. I'm not 100% sure how it works, but I think the mechanic of it looks pretty cool. So I'm excited to learn more about that game. Battle for the Deep. This is a unique setup every time. So part of the game is the setup process of putting the pieces in the particular places that you want them. So that should be really a different twist, using the Axis Allies battle mechanics to play out a fantasy themed game. So I think that's pretty cool. And I'm looking forward to that. Of course, everybody's talking about Stalingrad and what this is going to mean. I just love the box art for this game. I just think that's,
Really good.
I mean, the color grading and the saturation is just right, and the depth of it, like back here, I just think that's very, very cool. I'm gonna have to write a fan letter to whoever's doing the box art for these games. Game comes with two scenarios: Race to Stalingrad and Operation Uranus. Found out the other day when we were shooting the video with Dave Jensen that Dave Jensen was actually one of the playtesters for this game. So he's going to have some insights when it finally gets out into the world. So that's exciting. Order cards, which should help keep the game more orderly, which I think is going to be good. This comes with two game boards and both boards are used in both scenarios. My original thought was that it was like the city was part 2, right, and that the exterior board was part 1. But I think that when Matt Hyra was here last time, he jumped in and let us know that both maps are used for both scenarios. So yeah, this is the Dawn map. So this is the wider area, and it's got all of the bridges and all of the train tracks and some of the monuments, as well as like where units are entering from. And I think the art here just looks fantastic. I wonder, do I have? Yeah, so this is a close-up of the Dawn map, so you can get a closer look at like how the units are going to move from space to space. So I think that's going to be really kind of
I
cool.
like that you can see the borders between the territories. One of my biggest complaints about Axis and Allies is, even though I
Man,
love the maps, is some of those borders, you can't see them. You have to just know where they are.
absolutely. I can't tell you how many times I've seen, particularly on the 1942 second edition map, how
Hmm.
many times people have like tried to go um, from Karelia directly to Moscow because they can't see the borders of Archangel. They can't see that
Yeah.
Archangel connects to West Russia. So yeah, this I love. Thank you again, who's ever doing the graphic design here. This is much better. This is the city map. You've got the bridge, some of the river there, lots of the different sites inside the city. So I think that's pretty cool. Two new units, one of which is a rocket launcher, which is pretty cool. And the German Stug 3 assault gun. This is a closer look at that unit, which is pretty cool. This is the back of the box. There's a ton of information on here. The highlight for me here, though, is that this is a 2-player game, and I think that's a nice addition to the franchise. Of course, North Africa was a 2 to 4-player game. Guadalcanal was a 2-player game. Battle of the Bulge, I believe, was that also a 2-player game? I think it is. I'll have to find out, I suppose.
I'm sure I haven't played that one.
Me neither. So those are the 3 games that are coming out in 2025 for the Axis Allies franchise. Make sure that you're using the link in the description to purchase those and anything else that you're looking for. They also just announced, and I didn't get a chance to drop it in this slide deck, but they just announced the premium map for 1914, and it is a 3-foot by 3-foot rollout neoprene mat. They also fixed the national production chart on there so that it's not like all jammed in the middle of the Sahara Desert, which is pretty cool. So I think that there's going to be some pretty cool items happening there. So yeah, so I'm excited about it. I think it's going to be a good year to be an Axis Allies player. I'll put that out there. So
I'm looking forward
which
to
one?
Stalingrad particularly.
I'm sorry. What did you say?
I'm looking forward to Stalingrad particularly.
Yeah, I think so too. What is anybody else out there looking for? I've seen several comments in here for Stalingrad, but is there anybody that's kind of got a hankering for Battle of the Bulge? I'm also interested to see what this Battle for the Deep is, right? Like I like things that are I like all the games, right? So, but I also like to play things that are new from time to time, so I think that's fun. Um, Santo Domingo is here. Thank you very much for being here. Great to see you. And Bloomington, Indiana is here. Really loving the video series. Thank you very much. Do you happen to be in the same county with the folks that only have one snowplow? I hope not. I've been to Bloomington, Indiana.
Bloomington's close to me.
Yeah, you're not. Yeah, you're not that far off. Um, so yeah, we'll see. Make sure that you're getting into our Discord server because I know there's some other folks in Indiana that are looking for folks to play in Indiana and in the central Kentucky space. Speaking of that, we hit a big threshold this week. I promised that if we got to 60 members, that we would do another giveaway, and we did it. We got to 61 as of about an hour and a half ago. We got our 61st member, which is super exciting. Thank you all very much for joining and supporting the channel and for being here. We really, really appreciate it. And so tonight we'll be giving away the 1914 map signed by Mr. Larry Harris himself. And we gave away last week. We gave away the 1984 classic first edition rule book signed by Larry to Moses. That is going out in the mail tomorrow to him. We also gave away a global map, but we have not heard from Ianof or however it is that you say it. We haven't heard from them. So if we don't hear from them by next Friday, we're going to toss that back into the giveaway pile and give it away at another time. So if you know who that is, please let them know that they won something. So awesome. Carl, do you need more cowbell, Carl? I don't. This is pretty random, Carl. I don't know what this is. What are you doing to me
He's
here, Carl?
asking if you have that cowbell sound effect. You got all these sound effects. Got
Do I have? I don't know that I have a cowbell sound effect.
a cannon and a glockenspiel.
That's what I got. I got that. I got applause. I got a hi hat. So no, I'm afraid I don't have any cowbell. Peoria, Arizona is here. Thank you for being here. So we'll be giving away the 1914 map in just a little while. I've got the wheel of prizes spinning, and I did find a way to randomize it so that the add a prize and spin again, they're right next to each other. Not that it mattered really, but it was more just like, oh, that's a little weird. So we got that sorted, so that is ready to go when we get there.
Nice.
Oh, the cowbell is to celebrate 60 members. Okay, cool. That's awesome. Thank you. All right, cool. So yes, this is another big one, Charles. Thank you. That's coming out this year. We are really excited about this. It's Imperial Borders. This game is going to be. I'm actually. It's funny because I went back and checked on the timing of the Kickstarter because we'll be doing more content about it as when it comes closer. They almost certainly will ask us to make a how to play for it, or maybe a playthrough or something. I'm not sure exactly what we're going to do with it yet, but we're going to do something for it because I'm super excited about it. Just what I saw in the rulebook and I saw it at Gen Con, well, I think it's going to be cool.
Yeah, I think it looks great. I participated in the Kickstarter. I'm excited about it. Looks really good.
Yeah, so I'll give you the Kickstarter update that I figured out today, which is that they are on track for June delivery, which is
Great.
really, really good. So, oh, how's that? Wow, holy buckets. That is a lot of snow. They have 15 inches of snow in a week.
Oh,
Yeah, that's a lot even by my standards. So that's some Axis and Allies weather right there. There's no doubt about it. This is a good question. I've heard about these, but I haven't done anything with them. Has anyone gotten Alliance from Columbia Games? Seems interesting, and I'm considering it. Yeah, I've heard about these, but I haven't had a chance to get through them myself. I'd be curious if anybody else has. I'd love to know more about those. So very, very cool. You like the jacket? This is my dress shirt. This is my semifinal dress shirt. Thank you very much.
There you go.
Thank you. I got I got to talk about it. I got somebody gave a comment on one of the videos before that like great videos, but I have a hard time taking advice from somebody who wears a t-shirt under a polo. It's like what? I didn't understand. I was very confused. Like of all the things to like pick out of my videos, like the color grading isn't right, or the audio isn't perfect, or there's a transition here that's missing, or whatever. Like
Your
no,
strategy sucks. Like
yeah, your
anything.
strategy sucks, or what? You don't know what you're talking about. No, it was my shirt. It was just very strange. I was like, all right,
The
brother,
shirt
whatever.
under your shirt, not just your shirt. The shirt
Right.
under your shirt. Right.
Yeah, my shirt under the polo. How weird is that?
That's really weird.
Yeah, I was like, all right, whatever you have.
That's funny.
Oh, yeah. Oh, man. Okay. So we should probably talk about this. So Skip, another one of our fantastic members, if you do one for Imperial Borders, I think it looks amazing. You got to do one for War Room. Oh, man. So I have done videos for War Room. I did the like a rapid fire unboxing for that game. They sent it to me on Friday. The Kickstarter the prototype got to them late, so this was not their fault. The prototype got to them late, and the Kickstarter had started like 2 or 3 days before. They wanted the unboxing out for it as fast as possible. They shipped it to me overnight, and I stayed up all night making it and then editing the unboxing video, and got it out by the next morning at 9 a.m. So yes, I've made some content for War Room, but I have to admit I've never had a chance to play it. I've been sitting there for who knows how long, but we haven't had a chance to actually get it out on the table yet. And I also have the 4-foot round rollout map. So like I have the premium edition, and I just haven't had a chance to get to it. So so I hope to get a chance to do that at some point. Have you played War Room?
I haven't. No. Mm-mm.
Yeah, me neither. I'd like to. There you go. It's an officially recognized board game attire. That's right. That's right. Tell your friends. That's absolutely true. So awesome. And boy, I think we need to move on to another topic because now we're talking about our clothes. They like the maroon on Doug. All right, cool. So
Why, thank you.
Yeah, very kind, very kind. All right. So we've talked about that. Let me get rid of that right now. We can bring this over. Let's do that and that. All right. You ready to get into our key moments? Okay, so
Yeah.
Last chance. If you have not watched the semifinal number 2, we are about to get into some spoilers for that game. So last chance, if you have not watched the semifinals 2, the video that came out to the members last night, to the public this morning, if you haven't had a chance to watch it, go watch that and then come back and rejoin the conversation. You can watch it on double speed if you want to, but I talk really fast, so I don't recommend it.
I was in the videos, and it's hard to listen to it on double speed.
Right. I do talk really fast. Yeah, I've thought about, Richard, you're right. I would love to do this, a 1914 how to play video. I would love to do that. It's just a matter of finding the time to do it. And I think Ben Harsh has a 1914 how to play video. And Ben usually does a really good job in his how to play videos. If you haven't seen Harsh Rules, they've got a whole channel full of how to play videos for just a ton of games. He makes a lot of content, and it's always really, really good. So yeah, if you, I would like to do this. He and I have different styles. He doesn't talk to camera. He does all voiceover with um, uh, PowerPoint presentation. He's like a PowerPoint master. Like he can make the whole thing, like sing and dance and do a whole thing. It's pretty amazing. Um, but yeah, but yes, I would love to do this, Richard. We will see if that should happen to come to pass in the future. All right, we have got a pretty good crowd. Do me a favor and hit that like button for us. It will help draw some additional attention and get some more folks up here. It'll start recommending it to other folks, because then we can dive into what we do here. And yeah, oh, that's very nice. Thank you, Richard. There's Skip. Yes, I appreciate that. We work hard at it, and I approach how to play videos differently. A lot of times what you'll see in how to play videos is, and Doug and I have talked about this quite a bit, is that um, a lot of times, and this is not criticism of any particular channel or anybody or Ben or anybody else, but a lot of times what you'll see is kind of just a regurgitation of the rule book. And most of the time, if someone's coming to a video, it's because the rule book didn't help them. So if you just regurgitate the rule book at them, that doesn't help them, right? So I try to approach it from a different point of view, right? I try to explain the concepts in a different way. Sometimes that takes a long time to do, particularly if that North Africa video was, what, 2 hours and 8 minutes long. I made a feature-length film on how to play that game. And it took an eon. I aged 5 years making that video. But yeah, so we try to come up with different approaches for it. So I appreciate that people like that and seem to respond well to it. So we also made one of our more popular videos in 2023 and 24 was our how to play Wingspan video, which is kind of a lark, if you'll pardon the pun, on our channel. But it was good. So
That's a good game.
I love playing. I love Wingspan. A lot of fun. A quick reminder, Robin, one of our generals out there, has got an event at Con of the North in February, the 14th through the 16th. They're playing 1942 Second and Global. So make sure that you check that out. You can find specific information about that in our Discord server. If you go over there and click on the events tab, click on the other events, you will find everything that we've got about all of the different events out there. So very, very cool. Yeah. So Craig T thinks that my perspective would be good for a diplomacy video. But by this, do you mean like a how to play? Because we do have our coverage of the U.S. Nationals tournament from Gen Con coming up, and we got live footage of the conversations, and that's going to be I hope that's cool, because like I'm excited about the concept of it, because it's going to end up playing kind of like an episode of The Office, because we've got asides with the different players and then the actual interactions with them, and then the board state, and Tom Haver and I will be doing some of the commentary for that. Tom is the event organizer for that event, as well as a bunch of other diplomacy events around the country. And he's an incredible diplomacy player as well. So, and he's a member here. So, if he happens to be on, thanks for being here, Tom.
I feel like it'll be like an episode of Survivor or something like that, where you hear the people like plotting and backstabbing one another and things.
Yeah. I knew when we recorded that, we had 4 cameras set up around for the different kind of meeting stations, and then I had one like wide angle shot so we could see people like moving around and the pieces kind of moving on the board and stuff like that. But we brought in a friend of mine called Scott Palmer, who lives in Chicago, and he is an audio engineer. Like that's what he does for a living, and he's also a game designer. He's got a great game called Kings and Kaisers that he's getting ready for kickstarting. So I'm sure we'll be talking about that more in the future. It's a global World War I game. Which is really pretty interesting. So we'll have more about that, I'm sure, at some point down the road. But he was our audio engineer for that event, and I knew we were onto something when about halfway through the recording, he waves me over, and I come over, and he leans in. He says, and he pulls his headphones in. Now, mind you, he can hear all of the microphones that are actually on all of the players at the same time. Right. So he's hearing what France is saying to Germany, what Germany is saying to Italy, what Italy is saying to Austria, Hungary. Right. So he's got like all of the whole game in his head. And he looks at me and says, I've got so much tea to spill. Like, I know everything. So I was like, oh yeah, we're on to something. This is going to be cool. I don't know what's going to
Yeah.
happen, because we're gonna have so much content to go through to like sort this out and to make it into something that the editing time for that is going to be really, really intense. But I think that it's going to be a lot of fun. So I'm looking forward to that. So we do absolutely have some diplomacy content coming. I also traveled to the World Series of Board Gaming last year and did the same kind of recording at for the Masters event that Tom put on out there. So we do have two big diplomacy games in the can. We just got to get the time to edit them and put them together and make it happen. I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be pretty cool.
We'll
fun.
See. Really good.
Hey, Eric Beem is here. Eric was one of our helpers and one of our production staff at Gen Con this year. He's also got a channel that's got a ton of great content on it called Lakeside Gamer. Make sure you check that out. Eric, drop that link in the chat for us, and we'll get you some folks over there. Very cool. Brad from Memphis, bro, hit me up. Let's find a game. We'll absolutely put something together. All right. Yes, Idaho is here. So if you're in the Idaho area, let them know. They're looking for some other folks out there. Fantastic. All right. So I think we're ready. You want to get into it? Let's get into it.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Yeah, last call for spoiler alerts here. We've got a pretty good crowd here now. Appreciate that. Once again, please take a second and hit that like button for us, and let's jump over to the game and see what we've got. All right. So, semifinal number 2. Key moments in the game. This is the opening board state. So, one of the things that Doug said at the end of the video that I thought was really, really insightful, and it kind of inspired me to set up our conversation for today, was the concept of ripples, where something seemingly small or innocuous happens early in the game, or a decision's made early in the game that has substantial ramifications later on, right? And we saw a couple really good examples of that in this game. And the most significant, I think, is the miss by the Japanese of the flying tiger in Yunnan. And we talked a little bit about this in the video, but like I went back and did the math on this. The probability of this outcome is astronomically low. For them to lose all 3 infantry and not hit anything. They had 3 infantry. Remember, the game on this, the bid on this game was even, so they had no additional artillery or tank or anything going into this battle. But they're still favored in this fight. They're supposed to win this 85% of the time. Now they probably lose a couple of units here, more than they necessarily would have wanted to if they'd have had the bid here. But they're still 85% favored, which is a huge odds in this. And they walk out of the space with just their fighters and the bomber and don't take anything with them. That's pretty tough.
What I think is interesting is you could even argue before this, the first thing that started all was the lack of a bid, effectively, right? They didn't get an infantry, an artillery, a tank, and didn't get anything extra in this.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And we know, having seen, they were playing Brian and Adam here, or is this Eric?
This was Mike and Matt.
Right. Yes.
Right.
So we've seen them play in earlier rounds, and we know that they would have given at least 3, 4, maybe 5 to be able to play the allies here. So yeah, you're right, Craig. It is a little weird that the bid was even, and because most of the games that we've seen so far, it's been bids to the Axis, +4, +5, I think is what we've seen in the
Yeah.
semifinal one, and then the quarterfinal was
Mhm.
4 and 5. So this is the first time we've seen a bit of even in so far in this series. So we'll see.
Yeah.
Um,
I, th- I
Go
think
ahead.
the other significant, I just want to say one other thing. The other significant thing about this is the fight in C Zone 35,
Mhm.
because this is where don't they lose two fighters in that battle?
They
Japan.
they do lose 2 fighters in that battle.
Yeah,
Um,
that's crushing and really important for later in the game when America attacks the Japanese fleet.
yeah, yeah, that's true. That is absolutely true. Um, yes. So yeah, this is a good question. Let me jump in and grab this question real quick. So yes, Dave. Dave Jensen was part of the video with us, and he is the creator of the website accessanallies.org, and he was the semifinalist in this game and was primarily playing the Japanese. So this was kind of his play here. Excuse me. Um, so yes, we did have him in there. All right, so the ripple of that tiger continuing to be able to run around in China. Fast forward to Japan 5. Holy buckets. China is still in full effect here. They still have they're in all but 2 of their spaces. Now at this particular battle, they weren't successful in taking Fujian, or no, I'm sorry, China. When they came back to try to take this later in the game, they weren't successful in retaking it. But they did eliminate all the units that were there. So you want to talk about significant impact? Art, you made a good point earlier. Where did you go? I lost my mouse. There it is. Somebody was talking. Yeah, ship the points. The Flying Tiger killed a lot of units, and if you want to know how many it was this many. The Chinese units inflicted 28 IPCs worth of damage while they were on the attack.
That's crazy. That's a lot.
Right?
That's two carriers.
Right. And that doesn't even account for anything that they killed while they were on the defense. So
Man.
units that were spent to try to take them out. I didn't
Hmm.
account for that in this particular math because that would have taken a lot more time to come up with. This was pretty straightforward to find. So that is a huge difference. I mean, put 2 more carriers or 28 IPCs worth of units in here. The other thing that this doesn't account for is the loss of revenue, right? So if Japan is able to run roughshod over China, they're picking up another 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 IPCs per turn, 11 IPCs per turn if they take the whole thing, I think. So I mean that's a huge difference round after round, right? So I think that's
I think I think it's only seven because I mean they start with Manchuria, Kiangsu, and Kwangtung. So I think it's one, two, three, four. Yeah, I think it's only seven additional, but that's still pretty significant.
right. That assumes that Japan doesn't make any headway into China, because all once that fighter is gone, all the Chinese can really do is retreat, right? They
Yeah,
can just try to defend themselves unless they feel like they want to send 2 or 3 guys out there to try it, right? And that's a pretty low probability push usually, depending on what's in the space, right? So
yeah.
yeah, Carl, we're talking about the bids are happening in the chat over here. Carl is right here. I think the normal bid is 3 to 5 with an extra unit to attack the Chinese. So yeah, um,
Yeah.
Armando has not watched the video. We're glad that you're here. You're going to get a bunch of spoilers here. Yes, that is an Italian tank in China. Um,
It's
not
not a
something you see all
mistake.
the time. That is not an error. That is an Italian tank that has made its way all the way across. Yeah, yeah. And if I'm thinking about it right, that tank actually started in Italy and came in and landed in Transjordan, and then moved all the way across into Calcutta, and then around the corner into Yunnan there on the last turn to try to grab some territory. So yes, as weird as it is, that's absolutely right. So next. So yes, so this Chinese fighter, this American fighter in China, this flying tiger here is really important to
Yeah.
this game. And the rules
Hmm.
clearly state that once it falls, it cannot be replaced. So it's not like you can just fly another American fighter over here and assign it to the Chinese and call it a day. It's a significant piece. So
That'd be pretty
um,
handy for allies if you could do that, but it's good reason you can't.
yeah, no, absolutely. Um,
I always thought the game should come with a slightly different sculpt for this fighter, just to distinguish it from the rest of them. I thought that would be cool.
yeah, I was thinking about what you would have to do if an actual American fighter were landed in China, right? You'd have to differentiate it somehow from the Flying
Yeah,
Tiger. Probably just an American control marker underneath it. But my
I thought
wife,
about getting. Oh, go ahead.
that Italian tank took a left turn at Albuquerque. Yes, yes, it did. Yes, it did.
I thought
Yes.
about getting a fighter from my version of Classic and sticking it in the box here to put in there, just to keep it different.
Yeah, there are a couple of different American fighters in some of the other games, so that's not a terrible idea. Just to drop one into this box and call that the Flying Tiger. I don't know whether or not the Flying Tigers were P-38s or if they were some other kind of fighter, but
I don't know.
I don't
Surely
know.
someone in this chat knows.
I'm sure. Um, so yes. All right. So that is where we are with this particular moment. I don't think you can understate how valuable this piece is. So I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a pretty big deal. Mostly, and I'm gonna say one last thing about this, and then we'll move on. But like the the idea is that China needs to be able to continue to maintain some kind of territorial control because it's the only force in the area that starts the game with the ability to produce any new units at all, right? Because there's not a complex in India at the start of the game, the Chinese are the only one that can build over here. Moscow can build, Stalingrad can build, but they're at least 2 turns away from being able to enter a Chinese territory. And then once they get into China, it's still 4 territories to get to Shanghai, or 3 more to get to Hong Kong. So it's they need to be able to do this. So yes, and the chat has caught up with it's a P40 that is in the
There we
uh,
go.
that were the Flying Tigers. Thank you to our history friends out there. Very nice. Very good. All right. Yes, 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 yes. Ooh. You know what? Dave, I knew I liked you. You know what you get for this? You get a glockenspiel for this comment. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Does the Flying Tiger's importance help Gary's argument that the Russians should build a fighter on round one?
Nope. Nope.
Now, I think that it does. Um, so, I mean, and you'd know, right? So if Japan is able to take that fighter out in round one, Japan goes first, Russia goes next. So I think if I did lose that fighter on round one, then yeah, a Russian fighter there does make some sense because you can send it into China to help this to help these guys stay alive, right? So yes, no, absolutely. Charles, man, you're killing me, bro. You're killing me.
511.
Right. Okay. So I'm gonna put this out here. Thank you, Todd. Yes, a Russian round one fighter is so helpful. You're a good man, Charlie Brown. Charles, give me the reason why. Tell me why it's a bad idea. Because I'm not seeing it. So anyway,
I
so
I like it in 42-second. I'd be definitely willing to try it in this version. I think in this game we saw a very aggressive Russia. So, and you point out a couple times, wouldn't it be cool to have a fighter here? And again, I agree with that, like in principle. But my question is, to get a
segue.
fighter, to get a fighter, you only get 4 ground units on round 1 instead of 7. And there were times when Russia only had like 3 or 4 ground units at the front because they were being so aggressive. So if you hadn't had these extra 3 ground units on the first round, you would have had any ground units to attack with. You would have had your fighter, but no infantry to cover the fighter. So I think this, I just don't know if it translates one for one because there's so many different territories to cover and attack to in this. And you have the bomber. It's not like you don't have that extra ability to reach out and attack. So I don't
That's
know.
true.
Again, I'd be willing to try it. I'm not saying you're wrong. I just think it's not, I don't think it's as clear cut as you make it seem.
Do you now? All right then.
It,
Okay, so
you're just so convinced you're 100% right. And I'm like, I don't know. Maybe you're right, but maybe you're wrong.
I could totally be wrong, but this is my opinion right now, and I will die on this hill.
No, I get it.
But it's fine. So, and perfect segue because this is kind of our next key moment here. This is something that I absolutely wanted to talk about today. This has been the purchase that we've seen pretty consistently throughout this tournament so far: the 5 infantry, the artillery, and the tank. Round 3 for the Russians, when they move into the Baltic states, to me, this is the perfect example of when a fighter would have been handy, right? So they have to send the tank up there to have any kind of force, right? But you just know that tank's going to die. It's sitting right next to the bulk of the the German land units there in Poland. So to me that seems like a waste. I would rather have, to me, like the primary, to me for Russia the best purchases are always going to be infantry and fighters. Now, would I buy a fighter every round? No, probably not. Some of that would depend on how it, how the game was going, of course. But I think that if you look at the math of like moving infantry and then using the fighter to hit and then fall back, then I think you'll find that this is probably the most successful way. And then the only time I would buy an artillery is if there was breakage, right? You've got an extra IPC at the end of the turn instead of buying an infantry, buy an artillery. But other than that, I wouldn't do it. Now there are, of course, situational times when a tank is useful. You need to, you've got an opening to sprint into China, right? And you've got to run to try to liberate China. Then a tank is absolutely the way to go. There's no doubt about that. Or you're in Karelia and you want to drop a couple of tanks there because you want to be able to stage to attack into East Poland or into Poland. Makes perfect sense to me. The fighter just creates so much more opportunity and reduces the risk of IPC loss, right? So, and there's been a couple people in the comments here, and this is absolutely a good place to talk about it, saying that I thought this was a masterclass on how to play the Russians. I loved this Russian play. Again, and I said this in the video, like the only difference that I would have made is the fighter purchase rather here than and probably only in round 1, because you're right. They are going to need to continue to have land units as they march forward. But I think that the fighter here would have made a big difference. So I think there's a lot of options here. Now the Russian play is great, but the thing to keep in mind here is that it does not work without the UK.
UK, yeah. I want to just make one more observation about this Russian fighter. If on round 1 you buy a fighter, then you didn't buy the artillery that's sitting in East Poland, you didn't buy the armor that's sitting in Baltic states, and you didn't buy the infantry that's sitting in Baltic states. Like, that's my concern. If you don't create those extra land units, then you don't have the 3 land units that we're looking at on the board right now. We're saying the tank's a waste, but if you don't have the tank and the infantry because you bought a fighter, you're not going into the territory at all. So that's kind of my concern, is you would run out with such aggressive play, you just run out of those ground units really quickly. So, but I hear what you're saying. It makes sense.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and that is certainly a concern. So if you make that purchase on round one, you've got, four infantry and a fighter. You're saving two. Next round, if you make this kind of aggressive push, you're probably producing 27, 28, maybe 30, depending on what's going on in Buryatia. But so now you've got 32, and you're still, and if the UK did what they were supposed to do and liberated Karelia for you, now you can produce, what is that, 12 infantry,
Yeah.
right? And now you've got two fighters and a bomber and 12 infantry that just landed, and they're immediately starting to move, right? You
Yeah.
may not hold Karelia every turn when it comes to the Russians, but and this is kind of the big trick in this game, as far as I'm concerned, is like the Russians have the least amount of money, but the most production capability in the European space, right? Which just seems like kind of like a cruel joke, right? Um, So in the UK, they've got limited production capability, but it almost always matches up pretty closely with how much they're making, right? So, and of course, the Americans have, a huge amount of production capability. And I think in all the times I've played this game, I think I've only maxed out production in the US a couple of times.
Yeah, it's hard to do.
Yeah, I think I had 5 or 6 transports coming out of DC once, and and I was running into a problem where I could only build, I think it's 12, 42 second edition. Um, so anyway, so yes. Uh, hmm. Oh, okay. So yeah, that's an interesting thought. I think the difference between the Flying Tiger and Russia is Russia starts with more air power and can replace it. I prefer the Russian Winter, as Gary put it in one of the videos. So I did that 5 Russian openings video, and
Oh
one of
yeah.
them in there was the Russian Winter, which was a cross between, which I think was all infantry and artillery purchases, if I remember correctly. Um, and that can work here. There's no doubt about that, because you do start with the fighter and the bomber. 42 second edition, you're getting 2 fighters, so it's not a huge upgrade to get the bombers, but there is more territory to cover here. So I think that there is certainly some value in that.
In
All right.
42 seconds, you do the four fighter or four infantry and fighter build, leaving you $2. Have you ever been tempted to do four infantry and the bomber?
um, that was my crazy strategy at the end of that Russia Value Five openings.
Okay.
They were I rated them as most conservative to most aggressive, and the bomber purchase was the most aggressive that I could put out there. That does run in 42 second edition. That does run into a problem because you don't end up with enough um, defense when you need
Defense.
it, right?
Yeah.
Um, So if Russia does collapse, which in 42 second edition it's almost certain to do, then you're going to need that fighter on the defense. But I also paired that with what I call the Russia 30 opening, which was
Hmm.
to do the standard 912, but also send units into Baltic states to take out the tank and the infantry that's there. Um,
Yeah.
and that can be really effective. But it does mean that West Russia ends up a little thinner than you might like it to be. So it's a trade off. Hey, we got ourselves another super chat. Fantastic. Ed, you're a good man, Charlie Brown. 7.99. Thank you very much. The men, the myths, the legends. Fabulous debrief as always, boys. Thank you very, very much, sir. We appreciate that. You, my friend, get yourself a glockenspiel. Very nice. Appreciate that. Very kind. All right.
I like
Moving on.
it.
So I have said my piece about the Russian fighter. Do with it what you will. I think that has an enormous amount of value. I will be playing it the next time you see me playing Anniversary Edition. It'll be 4 guys and a fighter. Book it now.
Could be this
So,
fall.
yes. Um, all right. So the next one that we wanted to talk about, Charles, this one's for you. One of the things that I said in the video, one of the things that happened in the video was Dave, as the Japanese purchased on the 4th turn for Japan, in preparation for the U.S. coming over, bought 4 subs and then the 3 guys, and then moved the entire fleet down to French Indochina, Thailand, right? And on turn 5, moved the units back into 62 and bought another sub. So they bought 5 subs there as a um, um, as a way to defense. I'm sorry, I'm stammering because Tom Haver just showed up and reminded us that Lady Killer Doug Thorpe here is also very humble. He's a humble man. He's very kind. Good to see you, Tom. All right, so I wanted to know whether or not this was the right choice, and so I asked Dave in the video, like, can you explain this purchase for us? And his contention was that the subs were good for the defense, and I don't know if that was true. And I will say, my first instinct was that was not correct, right? So I wanted to see what that looked like. So when we get over to this battle and we look at it, right? So now fast forward, we're now US 5, and this is that big battle at the end. This is the US attacking C-Zone 62 and everything that's there, right? And we know that this is a pretty overwhelming battle. The 7-4s, 7-3s, 2-2s, 3-1s. I mean, this is a huge battle. I think their attack power is like 53 or something. It's a bunch, right? And if you, again, spoiler, if you haven't seen the video, you probably shouldn't be here. But if the sorry, something in the chat's making me laugh. If you look at the video, in the first round of combat, they rolled 11 hits, right? Which is a little better than statistically average here. They probably should have gotten 9, but they ended up getting 11. So it was pretty powerful. But so when we get into this, we look at this battle, we can see that it's pretty overwhelming. So I wanted to know, like, so the odds here for the U.S. to take the space, 94%, right? We use Dave Skelly's calculator for this math and for all the math and all the videos, by the way. We'll make sure that link gets added to the description of this video. And the others.
We need to find out who this Dave Skelly guy is.
So if anybody knows who Dave Skelly is, please let him know that we owe him a beer because we've been using the snot out of his calculator, and we appreciate his help. So awesome. So we're into. So we know that this is 94% with these 6 subs in place, right? 6 subs, we're 30 IPCs. Now, if we trade out those 5 subs for 4 destroyers, now we know that this is not exactly right because 4 destroyers is worth 32, but it's pretty close. I'm curious. Let me ask the chat here. Do you think that the odds of success for the Americans going in and being successful here, is this number higher or lower than 94% that we had a minute ago? Do you think that the destroyers, if we add 4 destroyers and take out 5 subs, do you think that the US's attack gets better or worse? I'm legitimately curious what everybody thinks.
My guess is that Japan has a better job of defending.
With the destroyers.
With the destroyers, yeah. If you make the swap, you have 6 defense with the 6 subs. You have 8 defense with the 4 destroyers. The destroyers can hit the airplanes, whereas if you're the Allies, you're going to have a hard time. You can hit the subs, but the subs can't hit your air. I don't know if that would matter, because I guess if you lose all of your boats, you have to keep a destroyer on as the US or else you can't land. So maybe that doesn't really matter, actually. But yeah, that's my thought. My thought is the destroyers are better.
So we've got a couple of different opinions out here in the chat here. So Dave thinks that it drops significantly, that the US's math here gets worse. He's amended his answer to 75%. Some people say 85%, 75%. So I I and I would have agreed with you until I actually ran this math myself, and it comes out to 95%. It's actually 1% worse. So basically negligible, right? Run this calculator 100 times and it's going to go back and forth between 94 and 95%. So it's basically the same. If you trade out the subs for the destroyers, and here's why. It's the extra hits that are available for the subs. That's the difference. So Dave, hats off to you, brother. You were correct because you were able to generate the exact same amount of defense for 2 IPCs less than we would have had to spend to put the 4 destroyers there. Now, obviously, whether he bought the subs or the destroyers in this particular battle doesn't really matter because, you know, at 94, 95%, it's negligible. But if if there's all of a sudden another carrier on the defense here with a couple more fighters in it, maybe a cruiser, a couple of interesting, a couple of other destroyers, whatever. Now you get to where the difference between an extra couple of hits for the subs and an extra hits to take on the defense really can make a difference over the larger scales like this. So I was really surprised by this outcome, and I appreciate Dave like kind of educating me on this. Doug, I've been talking about this for a while. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I think that, again, just off the top of my head, I would have guessed the destroyers would have been better. I think I said that in the video. If I didn't say it, I thought it. I think that there are a couple of interesting things. One is, I alluded to this earlier about the loss of the 2 fighters in the attack off of India. I mean, if you have those 2 fighters and you're able to put another carrier out here, that makes a huge difference. And then I think that
that's exactly Charles's point here. You wouldn't buy the 4 destroyers; you'd buy another carrier if you'd had those fighters, right? But without the fighters that got lost in 35, yeah, you're absolutely right.
Yeah, Charles pointed that out. Also, I think Charles pointed out that with the subs, you could also just attack with your air, and the subs don't provide any help there. Now, I don't know what the math would be on that if you just went in with the 6 bombers and the 6 fighters against, the surface units. But if you don't take a destroyer in, you don't have to worry about those hits being soaked on the subs. They effectively don't provide any cover for you.
Well, yeah, you'd have to go in with no sea units at all. You'd have to go in with just the air units, because if you came in with anything in the water, then the subs would be part of the defense. That's an interesting idea. I will say I had another thought as I was looking at this. Another option that the Americans could have had here would have been to, knowing that you're going to destroy that entire fleet, is to not send the transports into 62 to try to make the landing in Manchuria, but instead leave them in 59, wait for the battle to be over, 62 to be now a friendly territory, and then non-combat over and land them all in Shanghai. Because at the end there, you'd
zoom out. Do you have a zoom out of that?
I don't think I have it here.
I mean, yeah, that's a really interesting idea.
So there's nothing in 61. There are no enemy units in 61. So basically what you'd end up with is any of the surviving fighters and the bomber. And I think we looked at it in the video. You'd expect a couple of the bombers to survive and all 6 fighters. So you'd still have that. The Flying Tiger, the UK fighter was over there. Some Chinese infantry were in there. So now you'd have 5 American infantry and the tank, plus all that stuff that was already there. There's no way that Japan is coming in there ever again. So one of the other things that I wanted to look at here while I had this up, though, is one of the points that I made in the video was that in situations like this, you're always better on the attack, right? And when you get into that sub versus destroyer purchase, then it really adds up very, very quickly. So if this battle were reversed and this fleet were in C Zone 59 and Japan decided to attack it, you take out the American bombers, you put in the Japanese bombers, and all of a sudden it's 95% the other way.
Yeah.
Right? This is devastating very, very quickly. And you're going up against 3 carriers with 6 fighters, a battleship, and 2 destroyers. This is not a small fleet.
Yeah.
And you're just absolutely blowing it out of the water. So I think,
Yeah, I like the subs in that case.
right? So to me, like when you're playing this kind of cat and mouse back and forth in the Pacific with the Japanese fleet and the American fleet and whatever, like you want to put yourself in a position to be the aggressor, not on the defense, right? And we've seen this a number of times now, and I don't know, because of the way the turn order happens, if there's a way to manage that as the Japanese, but what we've seen a lot of times is the Americans making an aggressive push um, towards Japan, and then Japan retreating to 62 to defend that C zone. And that, when you're on the defense there, is your math gets much more difficult. And as our friend Ship here points out, fortune favors the bold. Tell your friends.
Yeah.
That's absolutely right. All right. Very good. Very good. Very good. Okay, so the last couple of videos, a couple of live streams rather, we've had this thing where we talked about how the other side could have won. And in this case, I don't have a path for victory for the Axis. And it's easier to do that, like how the Axis could have won or how the Allies could have won, when you get to that final solution, right? Where you're trying to grab victory cities and block paths and do all of this stuff. But when you get into a situation like this where a side resigns, it's pretty hard to figure out how they necessarily would have turned it around. Best way they could have won here, I think, would have been to take out the fighter in Yunnan in round 1.
Yeah. Not lose that battle.
Right. Yeah, that's true. There was a comment earlier that made a good suggestion that I wanted to mention here, which is that if you have the foresight to know that that fighter is going to be that kind of pain throughout the game, do you continue to press that fight with the fighters and the bomber in round 1? Knowing that you're likely to lose, fighters or bombers or whatever to take that Chinese fighter out. Or there was an instance in J2 where they would have had an opportunity to attack it. I think it had 2 infantry and a fighter, and the fighter there. They may have been able to send in I think it was 1 land unit and then a bunch of air units to be able to try to take that fighter down. So I wonder if, when you talk about a calculation like I just showed a minute ago, where it's 28 IPCs of units being lost, are you better to preemptively lose a fighter to kind of neuter the Chinese infantry units? I think it's an interesting idea. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, after the first round of combat on round 1 against the Flying Tiger, China had 2 infantry and a fighter left, and Japan had 2 fighters and a bomber left. So Japan's still favored in that battle. But I think after you lose your land units and you just got your teeth kicked in like that, you're often not thinking, oh, let's just press the attack because I got to get that fighter. You're like, holy cow, I just lost all my protection for my air. I need to get my air out of there. So yeah, I think you'd have to go in like, I'm going to keep fighting until I get that fighter. You kind of have to go in with that mentality.
Yeah, I think so too.
I think it's hard to make that decision on round 1 because you still think, oh, there's a whole game. I'm not going to lose my air. So I don't know. If Japan lost 2 air in the battle off of India, I don't think you press that attack. You lose another 2 or 3 air. I mean, the game might be over right there, even if you get the Flying Tiger.
Yeah. So this is something that we've been seeing a lot of lately. In this tournament, using the Anniversary Edition, how many times have the Axis won so far? Out of 6 games, the Axis have won. So in the quarterfinal match, the Axis won, right? In our first semifinal match, the Allies won,
Yep.
right? And now
Yeah.
in this one, the Allies have won.
Yeah.
So when we talk about game balance, this is kind of what we're talking about. And I think this game is exceptionally well balanced. I think that this 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 fighter being, honestly, if I could make a change to this game, it would be to move that fighter out of Union, because it automatically makes it the absolutely must get target for the Japanese on round 1. And it's gettable, right? I mean, out of the box setup, it's gettable at 85%.
Yeah.
Right. Which is pretty, statistically significant, right? So that would be the only change that I would make to this particular setup.
I've
Yeah.
thought that exact same thing. It kind of, yeah, if in 85% of the games, China doesn't have that fighter, it's obviously really significant. Maybe it would throw the balance too far if you move the fighter, but I have thought that exact same thing. Like if you move the fighter back 1 and Japan really can't get to it, it could make for some more interesting games. I mean, I have seen games where the fighter survives and um, China still gets crushed. It's not like it's not a simple equation like fighter lives, China does well, fighter dies, China does poorly. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
um,
Yeah. No, I agree. We also saw the game where the Axis didn't attack it, right? They went after
yeah,
Calcutta, and
mhm,
opted to go that way instead. So
yeah,
I think that's absolutely true. Yeah, Eric, you're right here. I think the Axis have more set goals, and one of them has to be to get that fighter in China. I mean, to
yeah,
me, we talk about like the 912 attack in 42nd edition, and it's almost automatic. Occasionally I like to throw in the assault in the Baltic states, but that's you know I'm a crazy person, so that's how that works out sometimes. But in this sense, I think that the Japanese opening is got to be to get the fighter in Yunnan. It's got to be to destroy the. Actually, here I can do better than this. Hold on a second. Take us back to the beginning here. So this is round 1. Um, round 1 J1 attack has got to be to take out this fighter. It's got to be to sink this fleet. It's got to be to hit Pearl. Right, and you can do all 3 of those things with pretty good math and be pretty dominant in them in just about everywhere else. So, I
yeah.
mean, are you going to lose the occasional fighter here? Yeah, probably. But if you don't take out the UK fleet, well, you're going to regret it. If you don't take out this American carrier out here, you're going to regret it. And as we've seen, if you don't take this fighter out in Yunnan, you're going to regret it. So I think that
Regretted.
when you talk about like a J1 opening, you got to get these 3 in here. I think that Calcutta is a trap. Um, even with a bid of 5 here in Burma, if my choice is Calcutta or Yunnan, I'm taking Yunnan. That's just how it's going to be. Um, I'm getting a comment over here that says that my audio is cutting out. Is anybody else having this problem? If you are, please let us know. I don't know if this is an internet issue or what the story is, but
I can hear
but
you
my
just fine.
okay, cool. And my lovely wife is reminding everyone to please hit the like button if you are enjoying this evening's discussion. We're thrilled with everybody being here. Thank you very much for being here. But if you are here, please hit that like button for us. It definitely helps with the algorithm.
algorithm. Hey, you were talking about the Axis path to victories. I don't know that this is a path to victory, but I think I mentioned in the video, instead of the Italian fleet coming up around the coast and ending up, I think it was off of like Hong Kong or something, what were the odds of them going into Australia? I mean, they had the two bombards, I think a tank and an infantry versus three infantry in Australia. It just seems like they should have taken a shot at that. It's a victory city, and I mean, what else are they doing? Did
Um,
you look at that by chance?
I did look at it. Let me change screens here real quick, and I can pull it up for us real quick. Let me bring us back up to here so that I can get out of this screen over here. And I believe I should be able to get us for it because I know that I did do that math. By the way, we just did the walkthrough, our walkthrough conversation for the final match. No spoilers, but it's a monster. Holy cow! It's an insane game. There's a bunch of stuff in that game that I've never seen happen before, and I can't wait to tell everybody about it. But no spoilers for now, so you can't see my screen because there's stuff about the finals on it. So hold on a second here. So question was Italy to Australia, 29% is what I came up with for that particular battle because the UK bomber landed there. It would have been better, but the UK bomber landed there,
I don't think
which
I
I don't think was a good
remember.
place for it. I don't know that I would have cared about the Japanese transport that was there. I'm not sure there was
Yeah, I
value in
forgot
sending that
about the
bomber all the way
bomber
down to take that
there.
out. But even
I was going to
so,
say it would have been more than 30%.
yeah, but even so, how much good is
Yeah,
it doing you where it ended?
yeah.
You know?
You might as well take a 1 in 3 versus a nothing. Like,
Right. Yeah.
yeah,
I mean, and even in that particular instance, you'll remember that they left the infantry behind,
yeah, yeah. Exactly. Guy was
right? So
just
that
hanging
infantry
out
was
there.
still sitting in Burma. I think this
Yeah,
was kind of a rushed choice,
yeah.
but
It happens.
yeah, yeah. Eric is saying that the audio has been cutting in and out for both of us, for him as well. I'm not sure what that's about. We'll have to see. We'll do our best to try to sort that out. Um, okay. All right. So now I'm not sure what the story is. I don't. Yeah, our internet speed seems pretty good here, so I'm not sure what the issue is. Maybe the lines are just cold. Maybe that's it. I'm gonna blame the weather. We'll see. Okay, so I'm gonna go back to the keynote here real quick, and there's one other thing I wanted to talk about with everybody before we move on from that. Keynote. Here we go. Okay, cool. You know what? I'm gonna go back for just a second so that I don't have this big strobing. I need to flip through the slides real quick here, and I know that there's some folks with that don't respond well to the flashing. So let's get back over to here. Okay, cool. All right, keynote. So here we go. So we talked about this paths to Axis, the Axis paths to victory. I don't have one. I don't know that there was anything that they could have done by the time they got to this point in the game. The final victory count was 11-7, but even if they had been tied, um, the production amount here was completely lopsided. The Axis were only making 70, the Allies were making 96 at the end of the US's fifth turn. So this was, I don't know that there was a way to turn this particular game around. I think it was probably the right point to resign, which I think is, you got to know when to quit, I suppose, right? And I don't, does anybody seem to think that they, does anybody else see a path to victory for the Axis here that I didn't see? So Axis path to victory is yeah, okay, subtle, Eric, I like it. Is not being dead by round 6 or 7, which is a lot harder than it sounds. Yes, that is absolutely true. Here we go. Ed, you're back with another super chat. Thank you very much, sir. Side note, thank you for streaming for when it's convenient in Australia. Thank you very much. I don't, it's Friday night here. It's a little after 8 o'clock. um, in the evening. So I think that makes it Tuesday for you in Australia. Is it Tuesday morning? Are you having breakfast? I really have no idea what's happening in Australia. It's another planet as far as I'm concerned. I would love to go visit your planet sometime, but I've not been. Um, I've not been there. But thank you very much for the your second super chat of the evening. It's very kind.
I think
Uh,
this slide is really instructive. Now we know that at this point in the game, the UK is in France. They're probably going to get kicked out of France, but it's still, I mean, Germany's making 25 and Russia's making 30. Like, even if you add that 6 back to Russia, I mean, Germany, they're making 31 and Russia's making 30. Like, that's a bad day for Russia. I mean, yeah, keep saying them backwards. That's a bad day for
right.
Germany when that's happening. Uh,
Yeah, you're saying it
yeah.
backwards because it's such a weird thing.
Yeah, exactly. It's like you don't
Yes, yes, yes.
expect that to be the case. It's like Italy's doing good at 17, Japan's not doing horrible at 28 considering how well China's doing, but man, Russia is like just kicking butt this game.
Right, man. This really was a masterclass on the
Man.
UK USSR combination. Um,
Yeah. Mhm.
it just really, and what I liked about it is understanding the turn order, right? I think that's the thing that they did the best is that they were able to land with the UK and take it or not. They knew that the Russians were going to be in a position to follow up, right? So that to me was like the strength of this play. So yeah, I like it. There's a lot of folks that disagreed with what's one of the things that I said in the video, which is the the notion that they should not have gone into London because the math wasn't good. Um,
Mm.
they had a shot at London. I think it was Germany 3, something like that. And I did the math, and it was like 30%. And they actually moved all the pieces around. They actually put the pieces
Yeah.
in London and the transport and all the little whatevers. And then they like actually then sat and did the math, and they're like, yeah, this is a bad idea, and ended up moving back. Um, but I don't know. I mean, it's only the third round. Do you? Because if you lose there, you're kind of doinked. After that, you're gonna lose a bunch of air power. You're gonna be way out of position to do anything else. So it'd have
Yeah.
been if this one of these things that if you do it and you win, you're a
Yeah,
genius,
exactly.
right? Um, it if you do it,
If you
yep.
fail, you're an
If you
idiot.
do it and you're wrong, then there you go. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, it's I in a 42-second edition tournament, I went for London. I don't. I'd have to go back and do the math. I figure I had a 65% chance, maybe 60% chance, but I kind of hung my hat on it and didn't work. But
yeah.
it is what it is. Like,
Why we roll the dice, that's for sure.
yeah.
We got another super chat from Cray. Cray T, thank you very much. Does it come down to the 20% into England earlier and 24% into Australia? I think Italy should have probably stuck around to crack caucuses. Yes, and we talked about this a bit in the video. I don't see that there's a lot of value in sending that Italian fleet out there. Honestly, what I think might have been a more interesting play for the Italians here in this particular game would have been to send the Italian transport with the cruiser, right, out to take Calcutta. Keep the battleship and the second cruiser, move it back to the boot, build another transport.
Hmm.
So that now you've got some mobility out in the Indian Ocean, but you're also in a position where you can still shuttle guys into Caucasus. I always think it's a little awkward in the Italian fleet because they've got one transport that can move 2 units, and they've got 3 units that can do an offshore bombardment.
Yeah.
So to me,
Yeah.
like you're losing out on some of the benefit of those particular units. So I'm more inclined in Italy, and this is kind of to Dan's question here. What's the ideal play for Italy? And we haven't talked about this very much. Maybe we'll talk about it more next week. But um, I like the idea of an additional transport purchase on round one because you've got 10 IPCs. You can buy transport and a guy, right? In round one. And you've got to make sure that the Italian fleet ends up in C Zone 14. to defend that transport as it comes in. Otherwise, it's just going to get blown up. But there's a lot of good reasons to do that. So, and maybe your entire Italian fleet doesn't need to stay there. So, anyway.
I think getting to a second transport is important. I like being a little more aggressive with Italy and making a landing in Africa on round 1, but I do think you can get a second transport, round 2 or 3 or something like that. And I definitely like that. It puts a lot of pressure on the Allies, whether you're, pressuring Caucasus or you're going into like, Transjordan through Persia and putting pressure on India.
So I didn't know this happened. This is funny. So remember earlier I mentioned that Eric was at Gen Con and was part of the production team. So he was standing tableside when this decision about London was made. And Dave's question to his partner Keith on London was, do you want to go home early? Oh, that's great.
That's
Eric,
funny.
thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And then the winners of the game, Mike and Matt, they were glad that they did not attempt that attack. I would have been glad that they didn't do it either, because yeah, you're favored to win, but man, you're rolling dice for my capital. I'm puckered up. You know what I mean? Like,
it makes you nervous either way.
Yeah. So awesome. Go ahead.
One thing I want to touch on is, do you build a complex in India or do you not build a complex in India? I think that's...
So I had a really good...
we don't have time tonight. Maybe we need to save it for another one, but...
Maybe, but I did have there was a comment that came in that I thought had a really good take on this, which is when you think about, again, you go back to the turn order, right? So Japan goes first. If they take out the Yunnan bomber, then or the Yunnan fighter rather, you can be fairly certain that the Chinese are going to have a hard time producing units, right? So if that happens, then maybe you're more inclined to build on the UK's turn a complex in Calcutta, because you want to be able to have somebody down there that can produce some units that can kind of offset the Japanese forces. And if China's not going to be able to do it, then the UK is going to have to do it. So it may be a conditional kind of situation where if the Yunnan fighter goes down, Japan has lost some units to do it. They've moved them out of position to do it, right? Almost certainly Burma is empty. So it's not like, Calcutta is going to be under attack on the very next turn, unless they do some kind of gymnastics with the transports. But you'd be able to see that coming. So I think that, I think that was a really good, I think that was a really good comment. The idea that it's maybe a one or the other. So, so I don't know, but I think that that we can make a whole video on that topic. There's no doubt about that. Then here, and this is Dan's point here. If the fighter lives, no. If the fighter is killed, yes. So that Dan, you just said everything that I said in the last 5 minutes, and you said it in 8 words. So
I was going to say,
good on you, brother. All right, so one last two slides here. So again, this was the victory count at the end of the game. Obviously, this would have been really hard to come back from. I was curious. I built this slide. I made something similar to this for the quarterfinal or for semifinal 1. Yeah, I made something like this for semifinal 1, where the total combat losses and the economic production I posted on this last slide, but I didn't do the math to separate the two. Underneath Doug and I there, it says production versus losses. So in this slide, what we're seeing is the total amount of IPCs generated by the side versus the amount of IPCs lost in combat. So this was a negative 219 game for the Axis and a negative 29 game for the Allies. So my question is that a valuable statistic? I think it would be really interesting to be able to say one day I had a positive game. I ended a world war and my side ended up with more IPCs, production capability, and forces in play than they started with. I got to say that to me looks like it would be a really, really dominant game. Um, but I wonder if anybody has any thoughts about whether that's a useful statistic or not. So, all right,
Are
back
you
to.
counting? Are you counting any sort of production for China in this number?
I'm not. That's a really good question. So in tournament play, the Axis get to count anything that they're holding for China, but the Allies do not, because China does not generate IPCs.
Yeah, I understand that. I just didn't know if you were kind of doing some math, like you were doing, like the Chinese men are worth $2 if because if they're producing men, even though there's not IPCs, there's production. So I just didn't know if you were factoring something in here for that.
Yeah, so I am factoring in the loss of the Chinese units.
Yeah.
Like
Okay.
in the spreadsheet when I build out like combat losses for the Allies, then the number that you saw um, in the video there, that included this. So
Yeah.
so very cool. So yeah,
Yeah.
Dave, that's a good question. It's an interesting slide. The 219 was, but how much of the starting IPC count at the beginning? So yeah, I have that number, like what the total IPC value is of all of the Axis pieces on the map at the beginning of the game, and for the Allies at the beginning of the game. So maybe that would be something to add in here. But it gets pretty dense pretty fast. We'll
Yeah.
have to we'll have to see.
Yeah. I mean, it's a giant disparity. I mean, 190 IPC disparity there is giant.
Yeah.
Um, but it is yeah, you could flood these slides with numbers.
Oh no, absolutely. Yeah, I could go blind making slides for this thing.
Yeah.
Um, all right, cool. So I hope that was helpful. I hope that was instructive, and I think I think it was an interesting game. I
Yeah.
think that both sides played relatively well. A couple of things, of course, that I would have done differently. Robin, you've got a really good point here. There was no reason to be doing this. Um,
Oh,
the Americans bombing Italy. This didn't make any sense. And the thing
yeah.
that
Yeah.
actually started the video is what Doug was saying. Is like he was doing the play-by-play for that particular turn, and he stopped the whole thing. He says, "I'm going to tell you that I didn't like this before I tell you what they did." And I just thought that was funny as hell. And this is what he was talking about: is those transports coming up and landing off the coast of Calais, and just knowing they were going to get sunk, right? Like,
Yeah.
I'm not sure I felt the point of that,
Yeah.
but that's
That
okay
bomber could have been used,
in a lot of
and it
different
wasn't.
places.
It really wasn't. It just kind of sat around and bombed Italy, and
Yeah. Well, I've got a couple other topics here, but we are running long here, and we still got a drawing to do. One of the things that I wanted to make really clear to everybody that was on here, there were a number of mistakes made in this game. The UK fighter getting added to the board, the guy in CU1. Doug, am I saying that right? How do you say it?
I say it. See Vuan.
Yeah.
I'm looking at my map. That's right
Right.
here.
Um,
I
so
don't
the
know how
guy
you
who made
say
the
it.
extra move in Suiyuan, the late combat move into Ukraine. Um, so the late combat move into Ukraine, this was something that they did, and the Axis players said that it was okay because there wasn't any conflict to do. The space was unoccupied at the time, so they were just stepping into the place to take control of it. Um, and I want to be really, really clear that under no circumstances do I think that any of those things was anything other than human error. The addition of the UK fighter, I think that was a genuine mistake. I think that um, the guy with the speedy shoes moving through Suiyuan, heading back to Ningxia after retreating from Kwangtung, no, Kiangsu, um, Sichuan. Is it Sichuan? Somebody's saying Sichuan. I googled it,
Oh,
and when I googled it, it came up with Suiyuan. But I'll Google it again. So we'll take a look at it anyway. So I just want to make clear that like under no circumstances should any of that been considered cheating, or malicious in any way. Um, I will say one of the things that they were doing here was, and I can see this in the video, and they're not the only ones who have done it, but they were making combat moves and non-combat moves at the same time. And I can tell you, it makes recreating the video a lot harder because it's hard to keep track of where everything is.
It
Um,
makes knowing what's going on in the game harder. Like, did the piece move or not? If you move a piece that's not participating in a combat during combat, then there's the high likelihood that you can move it during non-combat because it didn't participate in a combat. You have to be careful about that.
yep. And Paul's got it exactly right here. You guys had that happen last year with an opponent's Japanese
Yeah,
guy moving up
remember it
from
well.
Malaysia. That's
Hmm.
absolutely right. That totally did happen to us. Um,
Yeah,
so yes, I've got some confirmation here that it is Szechuan. 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 Yeah.
that's what I've
Okay.
been saying the whole time, Gary.
Totally. You got
Just
me.
trying to say what Gary says. I don't know how to pronounce it.
Yeah. Ooh, this is a really good way to think about this, Craig. Thank you very much. If they didn't consider it cheating at the table, I don't consider it cheating now. That's a
I
really
think
good way to think about that.
I think it is interesting because the whole fighter thing. If I didn't watch the replay or the live, but I think you said that even the German player's like, oh yeah, put that on. Like he remembered it being there also.
Right. And this is why I'm saying, like, no one at the table considered it cheating. It was what happened to my fighter in Archangel. Their UK should have a fighter there. And then Keith immediately says, "Oh yeah, I remember seeing it sit there. I must have picked it up on accident." And then all of a sudden, poof, there's a fighter in Archangel. Um, so
Yeah.
like I said in the video, these things happen when you've got humans playing games with physical pieces on a map. Um, so there were some comments in there in the video that you know were less than charitable, and I wanted to take a second to correct it. But I will say, when we think about etiquette in these games, I think that it's important to differentiate between playing on Saturday with your friends, in Ray's basement in Kenosha, apparently on Saturday, or up in Minneapolis. There's a global game going on this weekend, and the and then what happens in tournament play, right?
Yeah.
Like, to me, like, you're playing on Saturday, yeah, man, move the piece. I don't care, right? Whatever. It's not a big deal, particularly with newer players, right? You want them to having a good time and whatever. It's beer and pretzels. But when you're at a tournament and there's the march for glory is on the line here, then play by the rules, right? And the rules say you make your combat moves, then you make your non-combat moves, right? If start rolling dice, then your conduct combat phase has begun, and you can't now make combat moves. So it's a matter of, and to me, that's part of the game, right? Is paying attention to those details, remembering to move the sub from C zone 4 to C zone 2, right? Or remembering to march that guy forward from Soviet Far East, or the guy up from South Africa. That's the one I always forget, is the South African guys. I always forget to move them forward or
Yeah.
whatever, right? But that to me is just part of the game. And so in tournament play, I am a firm believer in the enforcement of playing by the rules, right? And but in casual games, it's casual, right? And that to me is the difference. But that's just me. So
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think there's a reasonable latitude there. Sometimes someone will forget to land a fighter during non-combat. They'll place the units, like it's very fixable, it's not a big deal. Yeah, land the fighter, there's things
well,
like
there's
that'll happen.
well, there's some things that are forced, right? If you forget to move a fighter, right, that's a must happen, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, maybe that's
if
not a good
you
example, but yeah.
Right, well, but the counter of that, so if you forget to move a land a fighter, then you must have done that. It is a must in the rules. But if you forget to purchase before you get to rolling dice, or even in theory making combat moves,
Yeah.
then you have skipped your purchase units phase and saved all of those IPCs. Now, I would say that you've got a pretty good amount of latitude there until you start rolling dice, right? You start
Yeah,
rolling
until
dice, and now
you've done
decisions.
something that changes the decision or changes the game or something like that. Yeah, I've had people start. I'm sure I've done it myself. Start what am I going to buy? I don't know. This is the combat I'm going to do. Start thinking about that, and before you know it,
Charles has got a super chat for us. Thank you very much, sir. One rule that needs changing is fixing the setup error rule. Yes, I agree with you, Charles. This is a reference to our videos from last year. We had an instance where, we set up the pieces, we set up the allies. No,
yeah, we set up the allies.
right. They set up the axis. We checked our side. They checked their side, and then we bid. We ended up getting the other side, and there was a Japanese fighter missing.
Axis, yeah, and we didn't check it again because they checked it. Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
And we're not the only ones that this has happened to. Again, human beings. But there is a process that can be put in place here that is pretty straightforward. So to me, the easiest thing to do is to make everybody double check both sides before bidding begins.
I was thinking, correct me if I'm wrong, Charles. I was thinking that Greg and then maybe Mike made an announcement before this year's tournament that basically, as long as you haven't started rolling dice and nothing has, like, no decisions have really been made, you can fix those types of errors, even if it's like in a different theater. So, for example, in this version, Japan goes first. When you get over to Germany's turn, if Germany goes to attack the UK fleet and you notice the UK battleship's not there, no decisions have been made that affect that theater, that battleship can still be added. I was thinking Mike made kind of that, like Greg made that concession and Mike explained that before the tournament this year. Anyway,
Maybe.
do I
Because
remember that wrong? Like, did I dream that?
no, I mean, I'm pretty sure that's what we were advocating before.
Well, we were advocating for it, but I was thinking that Mike talked about that before the Gen Con tournament or I said this year, 2024,
Yeah,
this
24.
tournament.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, you're right, Charles. There definitely needs to be some
yeah.
clarification around that. The other thing I'd love to see some clarification around is how to, and I feel like I'm going to open a huge can of worms here, and I don't want to be on here for another hour. But one of the other things I think we need clarity about is what happens when you have a fouled roll.
Mm.
So you have you got three units that are attacking with a 4, and you roll 2 of them. You were supposed to roll 3, right? Do you just add it? Do you just pick up another die and you roll it, or do you have to re-roll all 3? If you do the opposite, right? You have 3 4s. You roll 4 4s. You roll an extra die. How do you resolve that? And what do you do? So
We could talk about that for a long time.
yeah, that's a whole nother topic that maybe we'll save for another live stream, or another conversation. But I think that I will tell you, as somebody who worked in casinos for a long time and dealt craps, the dice game for years, that if that instance occurred where, so if you've ever been at a craps table, what happens is you're supposed to roll two dice to the other end of the table to determine whether or not you win, but you get a choice of dice. So the dealer will send you 5 dice and you pick up 2 and you throw them. But if you were to pick up 3 and throw 3 dice, it'd be what's called a no roll. Nothing that happens at the other end of the table is going to matter. If you picked up 1 roll and you throw it, or you pick up 1 die and you throw it, again, that's a no roll. Nothing's going to happen. Nothing of value is going to happen on the other end. It doesn't matter what it comes up. It's a no roll. So if that mentality were to move into this situation, it would be if you have a fouled roll, too many, too few, whatever, then the box is fouled. And this isn't normally such a big deal, but now we're starting to use attack dice more and more frequently, because Renegade in 2024, Renegade like came over and they gave enough sets of attack dice to use on every table, right? Which was nice, and it was good, and it helped speed up the game and all that. And I really do like, not to offer another shameless plug for a Renegade product. Again, make sure that you're using our affiliate link if you decide to buy these. But if the if they the trouble would happen is like you would have a big battle and you've got 3 4s and 6 2s and 3 3s, and then they would go and they get a big handful of dice, which is what you're supposed to do with the attack dice. You're supposed to be able to roll them all at the same time, but they would grab too many or they'd grab too few, and then they'd roll them and they'd be like, oh damn, I'm supposed to have 4 4s. I rolled 5, right? So what do you do? So and I don't know that there's a particularly right answer. Now, I'm not saying that I'm advocating for one particular answer to this, but what I want is one answer that is definitive and consistent. And that's what I would like to see happen here, because I've heard a number of different stories and different rulings that have come down. So I would love to see that kind of resolved.
I'll just say 2 quick things. One,
Thank you, Trish. I don't work in that business anymore.
Yeah, I like it.
Yes.
I think I don't see rolling too few dice as a problem like it might be at a craps table, because sometimes you have, 15 twos and you're going to roll those in sets of 5.
Right.
So if you have 7 twos and you roll 6 of them, you just roll another die. I don't think you say, no, those 6 don't count, because that could be real tricky. Like, I'm going to roll my 6. Those weren't so good. Like,
right.
I think you just add dice if you roll too few. I think that's a very simple fix. I think it's more complicated if you roll too many. Do you re-roll all of them? Do you remove a hit? Like, what do you do? If you're supposed to roll 4 dice and you roll 5, do you just re-roll and get 4? Or do you just, okay, you rolled 5 and you just take a hit away? Whether you got 1 hit or 5 hits, you just take a hit away. Yeah, I don't know. I'm sure there's a lot of really strong opinions about this.
Right. So it's time for prizes.
That's right. On to the next thing.
Cool. That's right. So we call that a conversation grenade, where you just like pull the pin and you throw it out, and then you're like, hey, all right, you guys have fun with that, and move right along. That's a fun answer. If you roll too many, it's the opponent's choice. You got the 5 and the 6 and the 5. That's what you get. All right, let's come down here. You know what? I think we might be able to put us both. Yes. And this is my ever so lovely wife reminding me that it is time to now do the giveaway.
Yeah.
Very good. Thank you, my love. All right, so let's bring you. Let's get down here. Skadoosh. Boom. So we got the big wheel to spin. And again, this is our prize for today. It's a big one. 1914 map signed by D. Larry Harris. This is the only one of these I've ever seen. I don't know if I'm sure at some point in his illustrious career, he's probably signed another one, but I have never seen one of these out in the free world. So I'm not going to call it one of a kind, but it is certainly very rare. And we have 2 buttons on here that if they should happen to come up, I don't know where they are now because this is getting pretty full. There it is. Add a prize. Spin again. Can you see that? No, you can't.
Yeah, one's bigger, one's smaller.
Yeah, you're right. That's so bizarre. Anyway, so what do you want? It's a free randomizer. Get away from me. So add a prize, spin again. If that should, there's 2 of them on here. If that should happen to come up, then we will add this, which is the Um, 1942 second edition rulebook signed by Mr. Larry Harris. So yes. Dave is absolutely right here. Jamie's reminding me that it's time to go home. So here we go. Oh wait, hold on. Oh, wrong one. Sound effects, that'll get you. There we go. We're spinning. 1914 map. Larry Harris goes to Curry Doris. Curry Doris, congratulations, my friend. You are the lucky winner of our Boom 1914
That's
map
awesome.
signed by the man himself. Congratulations, sir. We're going to remove you from the wheel. You are no longer on the wheel, but congratulations. So please, if you will, Curry, please let us know that you have won, and that who you are and how you want us to get this to you. You can reach us through Facebook. You can reach me through Discord. And again, my love, if you would take a second and drop the Discord link in there for everybody. We got a bunch of people over there already. A couple hundred people have already joined there, and people are already setting up games. And I think Robin has already got a couple of folks put together to play a game that he met on the server, which is great. And we're getting people connected. We've got a bunch of German players that are starting to connect. We're putting some Australians together, which is really exciting. There's a dude in northern New Zealand that he's basically betting that we will not be able to find anybody for him to play with. But I think he's wrong, because we've had a number of New Zealanders that have joined the mission here. Corey, you're actually on the live stream with us. Fantastic. Congratulations. Fantastic. So again, reach out to us through that Discord server right there. And if you don't know how to use Discord, it's super easy. All you got to do is follow that link. If you don't have an account, create an account. It's absolutely free. And the link will then take you into the Board Game Nation Discord server. Jump in the general chat. You'll see my name in there, or you'll see me listed on the right. Just send me a message so we can get your street address and we can get this mailed out to you in the next couple of days. So congratulations, my friend. Thank you very much for being a member. We got up to 61. Next big threshold is 80. And if we can get to 80, we've got another live stream next Friday to go over the final, which again is bonkers, just bonkers. But if we can get to 80, I would love to be able to give away the next set, which is, what are we doing? What did I say? Oh yeah, we're doing, I'm off the camera. I've got a rule book, 1914 rule book, signed by Mr. Harris. Excuse me, Doris. So we got that. That's going to go out for 80. And also for 80, we're going to do another of the War Room kits. We had 3 kits. We sent one out in that big one in December. We're going to give another one away at 80. And another global map. We have a couple of these. So 80 is a big one for us. So if we can get to 80, boom, then we'll give away the 1914 rulebook, the global map, and the War Room kit, which is just crazy. And this is what will be included in that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Jumbo world map.
Yes, this is the monster neoprene 4-foot like War Room map. It's really pretty incredible. I'm not going to roll it out right now because my wife wants to go home. But if we can get to 80 by next week, I'd love to give away all this stuff for the final. So it's the big War Room kit, it's the 1914 rule book, and another global map. So yes. No, Robin, you may not have my Lord of the Rings Risk. Get away from me. This is a great game, by the way. This is my favorite version of Risk. I love this version of Risk. But we'll talk about that another day. So awesome. So Doug, any thoughts, questions, comments, anything to talk about?
No, we've yeah, a lot to talk about, but maybe another night.
Yes. I need to take my wife to dinner and get some sleep. It's been a the production schedule for this is tough, but it's been a lot of fun. We really enjoyed being able um, to bring this community together around this great game, and we're excited to see what's coming up next. We're having conversations now about hosting tournaments in different parts of the country, um, and we'd be interested if that was what you'd be looking for. So here's what I'm going to say it this way: we're going to put a poll out on the YouTube channel and on the Discord server in the next few days, talking about what you would like to see in an Access and Allies centric event. So there'll be a couple of different questions in there, like, would you rather have it be a standalone event, or would you rather have it be part of a convention where there's other things to also do while you're there? The other question is, do you want a 2-day event or a 3-day event? What kind of games do you want to play? And um, and where do you want it? Where do you need it to be? So we're looking at some really cool locations. We were talking about um, the War College in Rhode Island, the Navy War College in Rhode Island. I think would be very cool. We've talked about there's an infantry museum in Georgia that I think would be really cool. There is a military museum just outside of Chicago that I think would be really interesting. But we can also do it at like Adepticon. And there's something called GaryCon in Kenosha in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin, which I just think is I would just want to do it there because I think it's funny. So we
I
got to
think that's
find
a
a Doug
different
con.
Gary.
That's right. Um, I think Louisville is a really interesting choice because I think there's a
Yeah.
lot of people in that area and it's really centric to a lot of the folks that are in, the Chicagoland area or Cincinnati or Tennessee. We
St.
can be there.
Louis. Yeah.
So yeah, so I think there's a lot of really interesting options there. So we're gonna have that poll out in the next few days after I finish editing the final video. So hopefully we'll be able to get that out a little bit earlier than this one came out this week. So we're hopefully be able to get that done sooner than later. And one last announcement before we let everybody go. This is the last time you will see this space. We are moving. On top of everything else that's been going on this month, our landlords have decided that they are going to do something else with the building and sell it. And so they've asked everybody with very little notice to move out. And so we've thankfully found a new home, and we're be moving over there next Thursday. So next Friday night's live stream will be from our new location. Hoping that the internet holds as well as we're
Yeah.
hoping that it will. So it's been a good time here, and we've made a lot of friends and done a lot of work here. So a new chapter starting in our new location, and it'll be bigger, and we'll be able to do a lot more stuff there. So I think it's gonna be cool. So awesome. So this is the kind of stuff I'm talking about. So Rowdy, this is great. So Pima Air Museum in Tucson, Arizona. These are great. These are great suggestions. The question is, are there enough people in this region that would travel to Tucson for that to be a viable event? That's really what it comes down to. And because I'll go anywhere, right? We'll host. I was joking earlier today about hosting an Axis and Allies European Championship in Amsterdam, and we'd make it happen. We can figure it out, right? I would love to do that. It'd just be a matter of like, okay, are there going to be enough people to show up to make it worthwhile, right? So anyway, so awesome, guys. Again, thank you very, very much for being here. Thank you for being members. It's been a great show. Thank you very much, Doug. Thank you very much for your time
Yeah.
and
Thanks a lot. This is
for
great.
hanging out with us. Thank you for the super chats from everybody that was there, and that is where we will leave it. Thank you very much for watching, and we will see you in the finals of the 2024 Axis and Allies World Championships. Have a great night.
Good night, everybody.
Bye.